I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. The assurance of quality and competency in these days politicians are ever more becoming important to ensure that they make good policies and are able to lead, especially as time goes on and the world changes as well as the people. We need to be more adaptable and lead and elect more adaptable candidates to accommodate for these problems. And thus, we are so proud to oppose the proposition team. In this debate, I will explain a few things. Firstly, why their side doesn't ensure that the candidates will conform to the test. Secondly, why their views on politicians and politics in general being objective is wrong. Thirdly, the characterization of the politicians. Fourth, the nature of politics. And fifth, when our side, what we have on our side. That is 2 points. We have more agile politicians and we don't oppose representation, and with that we it will result in more participation compared to the proposition D. So firstly, I will start off with my rebels and I will rebut some of their claims. Firstly, on their side, the confirmation that politicians will make policies that conform to the test is not ensured. There's a few things to understand here. That is, firstly, the goal of the politicians and their view towards the candidate's interest. Firstly, politicians have a pragmatic interest to win. They want to be elected to enact their already planned policies. This doesn't mean that their intentions are good or bad. And secondly, pro team views that their pragmatic interest is to win, and that can be achieved through popularity and charisma. Will only end up in making bad policies, which isn't the case, because the policies that they promise and they want are based off the changing problems in the world, and they want to solve it after they get elected. They use popularity and charisma as a tool to eventually fulfill what they want. And secondly, secondly, about my rebel, their views on politics as objective is wrong. There's a few things to know here as well. Firstly, the world and the people's nature that changes over time and their problems, as well as their views towards politics. Firstly, the world and people change over time. There's where society can change and their needs can change as well. For example, when a society goes through an economic crisis or a social inequality. And secondly, sometimes we need to have politicians that can make policies on the economy, and there are other times when we need more liberal politicians to combat social inequality. It depends on the changing problems in society. The proposition views towards politics as objective. They standardize it as things such as economy and other things like that are based on the time that certain things happen. But the issues in society, as I've told to you, changes over time. So the standardization of politics and the standardization of policy making by implementing this test isn't in line with the subjectiveness and the ever changing problems in society as a whole. And it will only achieve to complicate problems and prevent them from achieving a goal based on the changing problems and not based on the quote unquote objective test. So now on to the characterization. A few points here that a few stakeholders here that I will characterize is the politicians, and secondly the world and society as a whole and their natures. So firstly, politicians. They have a pragmatic goal to win and be elected to enact their policies. This policy, these policies are based on what they experience in the world. That is the ever-changing problem that I've been talking about. and they use charisma, popularity, promises, and policies, and etc. to win. And secondly, about the world and society. The world and society's problems are ever changing, such as economic crisis and social inequality. They require adaptation to manage them effectively, such as policies handled specifically for these problems that can change with elected leaders from time to time, such as an economic crisis requiring a leader that knows the economy well, or when it changes to where social inequality is a big problem in the country or the place that they're in, and they need a more liberal and a politician that knows more about social inequality and can change it because of their policies. And now moving on to my arguments. Here I will explain two arguments. Firstly, why we elect more politicians that are more agile and more adaptable. And secondly, why on our side we don't prevent representation and thus results in more participation than what they promise on their side. Firstly, I will explain why on our side there are more agile and adaptable leaders. The nature of society and the world changes, as I've said before, but the standardization of the test isn't effective at addressing these changes because the tests are stiff or objective in this case. As they've said, the standardization assumes that the standardization assumes that the information in the test will also apply in the future, and that that is not true because the world and people always change and their problems as well. On our side, the politicians' policies follows the changing problems in society, and without the pressure of conforming to a test, they can make ideas and policies that are addressed to the changing problems. Thus, on our side, the relevant problems on our side, the relevant problems would be addressed and fixed, unlike on their side, where the information given in the test might not apply now. And on to my second point in this argument, I will explain why we don't oppose representation, and thus it will result in more participation on our side rather on their side. The politicians that passed are depicted as perfect on their side because they passed the test. That isn't the representation of the people. Even someone like Barack Obama, as brilliant as he is, sometimes he needs to show his humanity to relate to people, to earn their respect, and make them participate in the elections and support him. We can see this in Indonesian elections where people take sides on Ganjar, Anies, and Prabowo because they are more relatable. This isn't the case on the propositions world because they depict them as perfect since they passed the test, and thus we are so proud to post.